Yo, it's Arnav on the mic. Welcome to SportsVibe, where every game's alive and the energy's high. From NBA dunks to college hoops so tight. Stanley Cup playoffs, night after night. College football Saturdays, NFL Sundays. Breaking down the highlights, calling out the plays. We got the weekly coverage, deep dives in the zone, with expert takes that'll make you feel right at home. Interviewing guests from legends to new stars, getting all the stories no matter who you are. From courts to fields, ice rinks and beyond. SportsVibe's the place where sports fans belong. So smash that subscribe, come join the ride. With Arnav on the mic, we keep it live. Basketball, football, hockey's fierce pride. SportsVibe's a channel, yeah, your passion can't hide.
Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe, episode 95. SportsVibe is officially on the count, or on the march for 100 episodes. I have something special planned for the 100th, which is going to coincide with week 1 of the college football season, which I'm really excited about. So in the honor of that, we'll be previewing the NFL for the next month. I'm going to look at the NFC, the AFC, some college football, the Big Ten, and an episode for all the other conferences, SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, ACC. So a busy month of August planned. But I mean, I also wanted to do something for baseball. It's not often a sport that we tend to talk about on SportsVibe, although we do. Usually it comes at the end of our recaps during like the NBA Stanley Cup playoffs. But given that baseball is kind of the sport of the summer, definitely wanted to have a little special on the standings. And I thought who better to bring in than my friend Jason Capehart. You might remember him from the Just Vibing episode we did a few months ago before the Super Bowl between the Eagles and Chiefs. And it's another good time to have you on, as you're a Phillies fan and I'm a Yankees fan. They just had a series. We'll talk about that. But I know you said you wanted to talk about the Super Bowl, because obviously we spent some time in the Just Vibing episode predicting how that would go. We both actually picked the opposite team that we were rooting for. And I unfortunately ended up being right that the Eagles would win the game. I thought it would be a lot closer than it ended up being. I thought the Chiefs are going to be in it. I was really surprised to see them get blown out, but I did think the Eagles had a better roster. So, I mean, I guess what were your takeaways from the Super Bowl altogether? What you predicted versus what really happened?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to talk some baseball. It's kind of my forte. But yeah, I figured we could kind of sort of touch back in on my last time on and touch on that Super Bowl. I'll tell you what, I was saying it just before we got going here, but the only thing I was right about was Saquon kind of getting neutralized in that game. But I think I certainly was not expecting Jalen Hurts to have kind of the game of his life a little bit in that game. But I'm certainly thankful that that happened. It was exciting to it was an exciting watch, and I was sitting with some friends who also are not Eagle fans, so that they weren't nearly as invested in the game as I was. But I know that I know that one of the memes going around during the game and kind of shortly after was that Eagles fans never truly felt comfortable until the game was decided. It was like, hold on a minute. Anything can happen. Don't start saying we've won yet. I was certainly guilty of having that mentality in the moment. I was like, hold on a minute. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But
I totally feel that. I mean, especially the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I think the story of that whole season was the Chiefs being not really the most dominant team. I mean, finding the most weird and wacky ways to win games, whether it was a block kick or a defensive stop or just about everything. I mean, I will say that, their defense was rock solid. I think they deserved a lot more credit than they got. I feel like a lot of people just were like, oh, the refs, they're lucky. Their defense was damn good. Their offense was kind of like, I wouldn't say a mess, but it certainly had its struggles. Kelsey wasn't really the same player as he was. The receivers oftentimes weren't the same, and the running game was neutralized to an extent, but it seemed like they kind of had it figured out when they beat Buffalo, and I was kind of like, okay, I mean, they might not have been the best, but they're kind of playing well now, and obviously I was rooting for the Chiefs again. And I was kind of like, well, I think they'll be in the game at least. They have a chance to win. I don't think anyone really saw what came, in the actual game because I thought even though I thought the Eagles had a better roster, in terms of receivers, the lines and everything, I thought the Chiefs were, still pretty up there. I guess what really happened was the offensive line kind of got swallowed up, or just kind of they got obliterated. They had a little bit of a, they had one weak spot in the right tackle, so they moved. I think they moved the right tackle to the right guard. It threw off the rest of the whole line, and basically, on offense, Mahomes didn't really have much of anywhere to go because of the offensive line basically. With that one position shift, it basically everything got thrown off. And then on the other side of the ball, yeah, like you said, Saquon Barkley got himself pretty neutralized. Overall, he had I think he still had almost 100 yards, but about 50 of them were through the air and less than 50 of them were on the ground. So, I was a little bit skeptical that was going to happen, but the Chiefs definitely stacked the box, and Steve Spagnuolo, they did a really good job in that part of the game plan in terms of neutralizing Saquon Barkley, stacking the box, putting as many defenders there. But they kind of bet that, if they shut down Saquon, they could shut down the entire Eagles attack. That obviously did not happen. Jalen Hurts, yeah, like you said, he had the game of his life. I think a lot of people have to respect him because this is the second straight Super Bowl he had a good game. Although the first game he had a bad turnover, but he overall still played well. This game though, he had it even better. He was almost perfect. He had one pick, but he had 2 touchdowns. He had a tush push touchdown. He almost had a perfect game. And the Eagles, they dominated. They threw the big dagger pass at the end, and they had a 40-6 lead in the Super Bowl. And on defense, Cooper DeJean had a touchdown. It was just absolutely nuts, what they were doing on the defensive side of the ball. Mahomes didn't was flustered, didn't have time. He was getting sacked. Even when he had the time to throw, the defensive backs were all over the place. The linebackers were all over the place. So it was just yeah, it was a really hard watch for me, I guess, as a Giants fan. I will say that on both sides of the ball, especially when the Chiefs were on offense. And something else that hurt them was they didn't really have a running game. Both Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are completely shut down. So I don't know. It was a tough one. I will say though, for next season, and what they ended up doing at the end of the Super Bowl was pretty exciting because Mahomes started throwing the ball to Xavier Worthy and down the field, and I feel that's what we were missing. I feel even Chiefs fans or NFL fans were wondering where that offense had gone. Because it seemed last year the Chiefs were really content with checkdowns and not really doing what Mahomes is known for doing, which is making these impossible throws. And we didn't really see that. And then all of a sudden at the end of the game we saw it because there was nothing to lose. And I was like, well, maybe if they played like that, they would have had a better shot. So I don't know. Hopefully we see that this year. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the Super Bowl as well. I know the Chiefs and Eagles actually they have a rematch pretty early this season. Actually, it's the second week. And do you have any thoughts on I guess the Eagles' schedule going into 2025?
I hadn't actually looked at it much, but I'm looking at it now. And like I said up top, baseball is definitely more of my forte. But I'm definitely seeing some games that are bound to be some exciting matchups.
Yeah.
I'm sure Packers fans have some ice in their veins.
That's gonna be really that was a tough one. And then
not even just from that game, but from all the tush push stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. That there's a lot of rematches with you guys. The whole playoff run.
Vikings,
the Vikings. So that's another one where the Vikings kind of have also had bad playoff history, regular season history with the Eagles. The Rams, who came so close to ending it right there, they're coming back. The Packers, like you mentioned, the opening game, I think, for the NFL season, I think is an interesting one too. Eagles versus Cowboys. That's there's one team that probably hates the Eagles more than the Giants. It's probably the Cowboys, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the Eagles raise their Super Bowl banner in front of the Cowboys. I think the fans will get a nice kick out of that around the league and especially in Philly. I think that it's going to be something to watch when they raise the banner in front of Dak Prescott, and then we'll see if the Cowboys could play spoiler or not. I don't really think so, but it's going to be a good divisional opener. And then the week after, the clash against the Chiefs and Arrowhead. So the Chiefs will also be, I guess, aiming for some revenge there. Then the Rams, And then the Buccaneers, that's been a trouble spot. 2 matchups with the Giants, like kind of in back 2 weeks out of 3. So the Giants actually have a very tough start to the season too. They while we're on this subject, they open up with the Commanders on the road, who fell to the Eagles in the championship game, but still had a great season to get there. And then they go to Dallas, and they host Kansas City for their home opener too, and then the LA Chargers, and then you might get a little bit of an easier game at New Orleans, the Saints. But then, like I mentioned, the 2 Eagles games, one's on Thursday night in New York or in MetLife, the other one 2 weeks later in Philly, the Broncos, who are a playoff team. So it's just a brutal start for the Giants. A lot of playoff teams in there, but I mean, I don't know. I guess that's life. I mean, I feel like this whole division in the NFC East is like pretty competitive. I mean, obviously the Eagles coming off a Super Bowl, the Commanders, with Jaden Daniels having the year he had, the Cowboys are always, somewhat in the mix, at least I would say. And the Giants, the offseason they had with getting Abdul Carter and, Malik Neighbors, Russell Wilson. I mean, like, there's going to be some stability. I don't know if they're going to really be competitive among like the division. Like it's going to be very tough, but I think the defense is going to be pretty good with Carter and, I mean, they added people in the secondary and stuff like that too. So, I mean, Paulson Adebo, but really the pass rush of Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and, Abdul Carter, and then on offense, Russell Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Cam Scadaboo. I don't know. I feel like the Giants could make some noise. They could probably win a few games people aren't expecting them to, but I think it's just going to be nice for the Giants fans to finally enjoy what looks like a competent football team and a competent quarterback with Russell Wilson, because I feel like with the Daniel Jones era, there really hasn't been like a lot of that going on. So I don't know. That's kind of like my thoughts on like the whole division, but I guess what are you thinking like the NFC East is going to look like going into 2025?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I said, I'm trying to make it super clear that I'm certainly not an expert in the area of football, but from everything I've heard, from everything you've been saying, I think you make a lot of good points about how competitive this division is going to be. And not to mention, one thing I'm seeing on the schedule is that the last 3 games on the Eagles' regular season schedule is Commanders, Bills, Commanders.
Whoa,
which is
interesting too.
That's raising
That's a tough way to end.
Flags for me. That's a pretty tough, pretty tough end of the season. Commanders, when it matters, is going to be super interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Because with the trajectory they're on, see what happens there. But
right. Yeah, like year one, they were, or under, it wasn't year one, but like, last year, was Jaden Daniels like a rookie last season?
I believe so, yeah.
I think he was, right? Yeah, I mean, just the way they turned things around, and they obviously won the matchup with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, but they lost the other 2. But they made it to the playoff game. They're kind of in that game for a while, and then they fumbled the ball 3 times, which was, again, not fun. But like, I mean, they were, and then the whole thing about the tush push and their safety jumping over the line, which I guess ended up being a pretty funny moment in retrospect. But like, there's definitely beef between the 2 teams, and they're definitely 2 of the top teams in the conference. They were both in the NFC Championship game. So and then the Bills were, runners up to the Chiefs in the AFC. They're always a contender. So yeah, definitely a tough back end there. I mean, obviously that last game of the season, like you don't know who's going to be starting or sitting because it's week 18. I mean, the Eagles or some other team might have things locked up, but you never know. I mean, that could be a play-in game could be for seeding. So yeah, definitely a strong finish to the season for the Birds. Just kind of like how the Giants have such a tough start to the season. Like they have 2 division rivals, and they have the Chiefs. They have the Eagles in 2 out of 3 weeks. So it's kind of like the Eagles are kind of getting that like on the back end of their schedule. The Giants can ease up. So we'll see. I mean, lots to look forward to. Like I said, I'm going to be doing football previews throughout the month of August. So we'll talk about that in more detail, and I'll talk about the rest of the 32 teams in the NFL as well. But in the meantime, I mean, obviously, this episode is supposed to be a baseball special. It's always good to talk about football, but we'll get into the baseball part of it now, I guess. Starting with speaking of New York and Philadelphia sports teams. I mean, the Yankees and Phillies just had a 3-game series. The Phillies took the first 2 pretty convincingly. And it kind of raised a lot of concerns with Yankees fans. There's been a lot going on, but I mean, just to sum it up in the beginning right now, I mean, the Phillies won 12-5, 9-4 in Fridays and Saturdays games. A lot of errors on the New York side, but then the Yankees were able to get the the season series finale win, 4-3. So they were able to stave off or hold off Philly from one win in the series, which is good, and kind of bring some morale back to the New York side. I think one of the other big stories with the Yankees right now is Aaron Judge being on the IL. I mean, it looked like he avoided a UCL tear or a season-ending injury, but obviously it's not really the best time for him to be out of the lineup with the way that the Yankees have been going in the wrong direction. But I mean, I guess like just to start off, like what are your thoughts on like on the Yankees and how the series has gone for like both of these two teams?
Yeah, I think this series had a lot of. I think a lot of what happened in this series is sort of representative of what these teams are doing. You look at the Phillies, right? You look at these first two games, they mashed, the guys in the Yankees rotation that aren't exactly, your household names. They aren't exactly your staples. They got to Will Warren, although they didn't. A lot of the runs the Phillies scored in the first game were late, right? Will Warren was fine for the first couple, and then the bullpen was really what really collapsed for the Yankees in the first game. Second game, they get to Marcus Stroman, who, I know he just hasn't really been the same guy. But again, they get to the bullpen late. And then, you get to game 3 where this is just what we've been seeing out of the Phillies all year, which is, if they get ahead and then they immediately get punched in the mouth, the offense tends to kind of just fall asleep. They kind of just, I don't know. It's really frustrating to watch games like this. And from the Phillies side, but then, you look at the Yankees side and you're seeing a lot of what it's been out of the bullpen lately, as far as I'm aware. And one thing that I will say is that as soon as I saw that it was going to be a Phillies-Yankees series, the one thing I knew I could count on was Jazz Chisholm having a good series. And lo and behold, from what I can he went 2 for 4 in the first game. I don't know if he had any RBIs, but he did go 2 for 4 in that first game. Game 2, let me see what Jazz did in game 2. Game 2, again, 2 for 5, scored a run. Like, you knew Jazz Chisholm was going to get us. He always has when he was a Marlin. He's just always been one of those thorn in our side kind of guys. And the Yankees have a couple of those, I think, with all their pickups from the National League. I mean, I don't know if Bellinger has necessarily been that kind of guy, but he's definitely gotten us a couple times. Stanton has always gotten us. He homered in the first 2 games. I don't think he homered today. But Stanton's always gotten the fills. Goldschmidt's just good. But the really surprising thing for me about, I guess, the series in general was Taijuan Walker didn't give up as many runs as Zach Wheeler did in the series. Taijuan Walker pitched game 1, 3 runs. Zach Wheeler gives up 4. This was the strangest Zach Wheeler game I think I've ever watched. Just such a strange game. He didn't have much feel for the sweeper all game. Hit 3 batters. I think Tom McCarthy said on the broadcast that was the first time since like 1997 that a Phillies pitcher had hit 3 batters in the same game. Or no, I'm mixing up stats. I think he said Michael Plasmeyer was the last one. But it's been a while, suffice it to say. We haven't had a lot of hit by pitches with this like uber rotation that we've had in the past like year or so. But you look at that, right? It's an early meltdown, but you still end up with 8 Ks and you almost go 6. Like, that's just who Zach Wheeler is. And I'm hoping this game doesn't have too much of a negative effect on his Cy Young chances. I'd really like to see Wheeler get it this year. I think he's deserved it for at least 3 years now as a Philly. But the Yankees just got the best of him today. But all 4 of those runs came in that 1 inning.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to look at from a Yankees standpoint, is that I don't know what the trends have been for the Yankees, but I think it's important to sort of spread that out a little bit more. And if you're scoring all your runs in 1 inning off a pitcher who's not on his game, this Phillies bullpen's not great. It's not a great bullpen, but it managed to shut down this Yankees lineup without really too much issue, especially in this third game. But yeah, I was looking over just some general like team stats, mostly offensively. And it seems like the Yankees are kind of middle of the pack in a lot of offensive stats, which makes sense. But I know that for them, a lot of the concern before the Aaron Judge stuff was more pitching wise, right? I mean, I know they have guys like Fried and Rodon, and Rodon had a pretty good game today, all things considered, and guy's an all-star for a reason,
Right.
But I think I don't know. I really don't know what to expect out of these Yankees in the second half.
Yeah, me neither. It's been like it's been very up and down this first half of the season for the Yankees. So I mean, we'll see what happens in the second half. I mean, it's been up and down to the point where there's been unbelievable amounts of like swings. Like just to name a few things. I mean, they went like they were pretty hot, and then they in the beginning of the year, and then they went cold. They had a few games where they didn't score for like 3 games straight or something like that against like the A's, I believe, and the Red Sox in that series. And then they kind of came back to life. Then they were swept against the Blue Jays, and then they lost 2 to the Mets. They were in a bad losing streak. Then they won the last one to the Mets, I believe. They started a 5-game win streak, but then they lost 2 to the Cubs. And it's been like that like for like quite a while, where it's been very up and down. So then after that, they go into the All-Star break. Then they take 2 of 3 from the Braves. Then they lose 2 out of 3 against the Blue Jays, and then 2 out of 3 against the Phillies. So, I mean, all in all, yeah, it's been like really up and down. I think the concerning part is like lately there's just been like a lot of like errors too, like in the field and stuff. Like Jazz Chisholm dropped one, like just a lot of things like that are happening too, where it's like easy outs are not becoming easy outs. And then, like you said, the pitching sometimes and the hitting, it's just like really inconsistent. Not having Aaron Judge like not in the lineup at this time is kind of a scary thing in a way, although I guess today they kind of held off. So a big series coming up against the Rays, the Marlins, after that the Rangers, Astros. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting division, but I think like, the Yankees definitely, they had control of it. Now that they're 5.5 games behind the Blue Jays now. The Blue Jays have taken control of that. And then the Red Sox are like right on their heels too. And the Rays are like a few games behind. So that's a massive series now, because if the Rays start beating the Yankees, they could gain ground in the standings too on them. So, I mean, that's a big series. The Orioles are a little bit out of it, but I mean, I guess what's your thoughts on the Blue Jays, like, having the season that they've had so far and the rest of the division?
The Blue Jays have been super interesting. I mean, you look at their roster and there's only so many guys that, you can really say their name, right? Like obviously they've got,
Guerrero,
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They've got Bo Bichette, who's been there for a while. They've got George Springer, who, I think he's had his ups and downs, but I'm pretty sure he's having a pretty solid season over there. But outside of that, it's a lot of youth, at least in the position player standpoint. But then, you look at their rotation and it's Bassett, it's Barrios, it's Gausman, who's, I think he's having an up and down year as well. You have 40-year-old Max Scherzer.
yeah.
But I think what you're getting out of the Blue Jays is you're getting guys stepping up. It's not always the household names. Like Vladdy's been pretty consistent, but I don't think he's having the same power season that you might expect out of him. But you get guys like Addison Barger, who's sort of stormed onto the scene. You'd never heard of Addison Barger before the 2025 season. You get guys like Eric Lauer, who I think went to like Korea for a little bit and then came back to the majors and is now, one of the better pitchers in that Blue Jays rotation. You get guys like Mason Fluharty in the bullpen who, he's 23 years old. And he's been one of the better relievers in their bullpen that I can recall. Brendan Little, like all these guys that you haven't heard of, they're stepping up. And I think that's what teams like the Yankees and Phillies kind of need more of, because their stars can't always be there, because Aaron Judge just got hurt, because, Bryce Harper keeps having all these injury concerns, and luckily he's back and raking lately. But, when you have Kyle Schwarber having a game like he did today, where I think he went 0 for 4, struck out at least 2 or 3 times, they're going to have those days. But what you really need to be a full, complete team that has, success and can surge like this, you need those, lesser known names to contribute like stars. You need Addison Barger to, come up on the scene and just tear it up. You need Eric Lauer to give you a reliable 5, maybe 6 innings. I think he's starting to get more 6-inning starts under his belt lately. You need guys like Mason Fluharty out of the bullpen. And the fact that they're getting so many contributions from so many guys and they're not just relying on a few stars, I think is what has made them so complete lately. And they're all starting to go.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. I mean, they're getting a lot of contributions from around their lineup, not just the stars, which is why they've they've been able to turn things around. And I mean, like they've not only overtaken the Yankees due to that sweep, but now they've pulled significantly ahead of them, are in the driver's seat of the division. I mean, I guess another storyline is the Red Sox. I mean, they've also kind of been on the surge lately. I mean, in their last 10, they've been 5-5, but they recently before that had a 10-game win streak. They were just in Philadelphia, so maybe you're watching some of those games as well. They seems like they lost 2 out of 3 of those, and then against the Dodgers they took 2 out of 3. So I mean they're kind of like, I guess, I mean, they definitely turned around their season and they're in the mix now. So, I mean, I guess like, what do you see out of them in the stretch run?
Honestly, I think the Red Sox, it's interesting because I think a lot of the story for them has been the big guys contributing, right? You're getting Aroldis Chapman having kind of a career year. He was an offseason pickup. Lucas Giolito, I think, has had some really solid starts for them. Garrett Crochet, I mean, he's looking like one of the better pitchers in the American League or in Major League Baseball. Alex Bregman, he made the All-Star game but wasn't able to play, I think, because of an injury. And I think they've had a good mix of having those off-season acquisitions, really help them out, but having the homegrown guys too. I mean, you look at Cedar Rafaela. I mean, I think he's batting cleanup for them now. This is 5'10", 165 pound, 24-year-old Cedar Rafaela, who I think was batting low in the lineup for them last year. Now he's contributing like crazy. Jarren Duran, maybe he's not an all-star this year, but, he's been in a lot of trade rumors, but I think the Red Sox are going to end up keeping him. But all of that to say, I think the Red Sox have a really nice mix of what I was talking about before, which is having, your young, your homegrown, your lesser known guys contributing, but a lot of their offseason acquisitions have been hits. And there's not a lot of teams that can say that. Like, I think to an extent the Phillies can say that with some of their guys, but a lot of their relievers that they've gotten over the past couple of years just have not been it. You had Craig Kimbrell, you had, Jordan Romano this year. Like, it's so tough to have so many of your offseason acquisitions be hits like that. But I think the Red Sox have been really fortunate to have a lot of those guys be that kind of hit. You trade for Crochet, you sign him to this big extension, and he performs. And I think a lot of that, I think that's going to really propel the Red Sox. It'll be really interesting to see what they're able to do as they continue. I got to look at the wild card standings because I feel like the AL, you hear it all the time. The AL is wide open. The AL is wide open. And I feel like it still is. Let me see the wild card standings here. Sorry, my computer's loading very slowly. Hello? Wild card standings. So Red Sox right now are sitting, they're in the thick of it, which I figured they would be, but it's going to be tough. Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting race. It's interesting, though. I don't know. I don't know if it necessarily feels like a 3-team race between the Blue Jays, Yankees, Red Sox, or if it feels more like there's going to be a clear front runner and then 2 teams sort of vying for a wild card spot. It's an interesting it's an interesting spot with that division.
You're right. I mean, we don't really know right now because, like, I mean, any of these teams can make a push back, but I mean, I feel like it might end up being a wild card race at this point because, I mean, the Blue Jays are a few games ahead, and the wild card race is we'll see. And there's a lot to go, but I mean, the wild card race is definitely heating up. I mean, the Yankees are in the first spot right now, and the Red Sox are right behind. The Mariners and the Rangers are like right there as well. So. A few games, just out of it. So I mean, it's certainly going to be with the first 7 make the playoffs, right? So I mean, so all 4 of those would end up qualifying, right? And then outside of that, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, like all these teams that are kind of just like right below 500. So yeah, we'll see. Like we'll see what ends up happening there. Yeah, I mean, I think it could go either way. It might. You're right. It might end up shaping up to be a wild card race. It might end up shaping up to be a division race. But I don't know. Right now, like like the Blue Jays definitely have the lead, and then the Yankees and Red Sox are both chasing them. I guess the Rays are a little bit behind. Obviously, like I said, there's a big series against the Yankees, so I think that might end up determining what direction they go in for the rest of the year. Obviously, the trade deadline's coming up. The Orioles seem to be a little bit too far behind, although they had a good series against the Rockies, who are also really bad. But I guess we'll get into that a little bit later. They had an 18-0 win yesterday, and then a 5-1 win today, and then they played the Blue Jays. So yeah, I mean, and then moving on, I guess, over to the AL Central. I think one of the biggest, stories this year has been the Detroit Tigers. I mean, they're in first, although they've been on a little bit of a losing skid themselves lately. Just two of 8 or 2 of 10 in their last 10. 2 wins, 8 losses, but still comfortably ahead in the Central. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's been like a weird cold stretch for them. Although, like, for most of it, they've been pretty good. But I mean, I think, obviously Tariq Skubal, like, as a pitcher, I think he's really, I mean, he's been like incredible this year. But lately they've been pretty ice cold. So I guess what are your thoughts on like the Central and on the Tigers?
Yeah, the AL Central is so strange to me because I remember not even a few weeks ago, a lot of people were thinking, "Oh, is the AL Central back? Like, is the AL Central the division?" The Tigers are the only team above 500 at this point. The AL Central has been, I think, kind of worse than it was last year. I mean, it is worse than it was because they had 3 playoff teams last year. But to see, obviously the Tigers have been such a pleasant surprise to watch. And I mean, you knew that Tariq Skubal was going to be good, and you knew that they had a couple kind of all-star pieces. They have Riley Green, but I think they've had a couple of really big surprises kind of help get them to this point. You look at guys like Javi Baez, you look at guys like Zach McKinstry, but I think ultimately, I haven't been keeping up with each game that the Tigers are playing, but I'm constantly hearing about that the Tigers have been generally over the course of the season playing a pretty good brand of baseball. I'm not sure exactly what's been plaguing them lately. I'd have to do some more extensive research into that specifically to see like what's in particular going on with the Tigers. I don't know if maybe they've just had like a tough schedule lately. It looks like their next series is heading over to Arizona, and looks like Arizona's they've made their decision, but we'll get to them once we get to the NL West. But yeah, the Tigers have just been that team that kind of comes out of nowhere. There are those certain teams that feel inevitable, and we'll get to the Astros when we get to the Astros. But they are certainly one of those teams that feel inevitable that way. But it's nice to see a team kind of to kind of show up and do that. But meanwhile, the rest of the AL Central, it's really surprising to see Cleveland below 500 at this point of the year when they've got a lot of the same pieces. I don't think they had too much roster turnover since last year, and that was a playoff team. It just seems like a lot of guys aren't really going to the same capacity. And I know that one area in particular that Cleveland has struggled is with pitching. I mean, you see 2020 Cy Young Award winner Shane Bieber hasn't really been there, and so you're really kind of relying on a couple of young guys at the front end. I know Bybee's still going there, Gavin Williams. But I think a big area of struggle for Cleveland has been really finding those reliable pitchers. Emmanuel Clase has kind of been having a tough year. I think he's blowing a lot more saves than people expected him to. I don't think he's blown a ton of saves, but when you're Emmanuel Clase, you kind of have a higher bar set for you. And I don't think he's quite hit that bar this year. And you look at the Royals. I mean, I really thought the Royals were going to be good. I don't know why. I mean, I think I just hopped on the Royals hype train of them being in the postseason last year, but I just don't think they ever really did enough and I think they've had a ton of problems with scoring runs. They have a negative run differential at this point of the year. And they've kind of been 500. They're not playing any particularly better at home or on the road. They're just kind of staying right around that 500 mark. I mean, I'm looking at, the standings right now, and home road splits, it's like basically 500. They haven't done great against teams over 500. So it seems like a lot of their wins have kind of come from sort of feasting on those lower teams. I know they just added Randall Grichuk the other day. It's weird to see the Royals adding, honestly. I think at this point of the year, I guess the AL is kind of anybody's to grab, but I just don't know if I see the Royals being that team this year to make a run. But I'd love for them to prove me wrong. I don't know what's going on in Minnesota. The Twins are so strange to me. I don't really know what to say about the Twins. I think there was a stretch where they were one of the better, like, hotter teams in baseball at one point, and now they've really sunk to 5 games below 500. And then, of course, there's the White Sox, but we already know about them.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them not being historically bad this year. It's nice to see them sort of hand that baton over to the Rockies, who we'll get to. But I don't know what's going on in the Central. It's sort of a stark contrast to what we're seeing in the NL Central, which has been kind of a bloodbath. But yeah, AL Central. It's the Tigers. I'd be surprised to see the Tigers relinquish that lead. If they somehow crumble that badly, I'd be pretty shocked. But I think if they can add the right pieces, they've only got a couple days left to figure that out. But I think there are pieces out there for them. I think I've heard a lot of people say that they could use some back-end bullpen, which everybody could use back-end bullpen. Everybody who wants to compete could use back-end bullpen. I know the Phillies could certainly use back-end bullpen. Same I know goes for the Yankees, though I think Devin Williams has been better as of late. But yeah, I don't know. I think if the Tigers can pull the right strings, get those right pieces, and sort of get back into their winning ways, I think they could be a lot of fun in the playoffs. And I think right now they would be matched up with, if the season ended today, it looks like the Tigers would match up with the Astros in Detroit. And last year's wild card series last year's playoffs, it had Astros Tigers in Houston.
Oh,
so that'd be an interesting matchup to keep an eye on.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's the AL Central's weird. I honestly think that if the Tigers don't win the AL Central, I'm like out on them, like super out on them. But
yeah,
I think they can do it. I think they just gotta, work on getting things right. Who'd they beat today? Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah, they beat them pretty handily today, 10-4. Wow. I don't know. I think they can easily course correct, and I hope that they do for their sake.
Yeah,
I think Detroit's been kind of starved for good sports.
It's true, actually. I mean, they've had the Lions, obviously, like, going back to football, I mean, they were a team they were first in the NFC. They obviously, their defense was really poor. They lost to the Commanders, and I mean, they've been on the up and up, and same thing with the Detroit Pistons too. I mean, after a long time, although they ended up losing to the Knicks, but they still made the playoffs. Very weak East in the NBA. I mean, maybe they can make some noise. The Red Wings, they had a long playoff streak, but that got snapped. But I mean, in terms of baseball, especially, I mean, yeah, the Tigers haven't been good for a very long time this season. Like you said, out of nowhere, they've kind of come back into the reins. They have, of the division, they've been in front, and even with their skid, I mean, they're still pretty comfortably ahead. They're 8 games ahead of the Guardians in second place, and I mean, yeah, I think they could course correct. I mean, it's been a cold spell for them recently, but at the same time, there's a lot of season left. So next up, Arizona for them, and I guess like you said, we'll get to that when we go over to the NL side. But I guess to conclude the AL side first, now we have the AL West. The Astros, after I think both was a slow start, if I remember correctly, but they've and they're a very slow start. They were not doing well at all. Sorry, I can't speak right now. They were not doing well at all, but now they course corrected, and they're now first by 4 games. I mean, they're 60-46 at this point of the season. The Mariners are in second place. Obviously, Cal Raleigh is, or I don't know, he's Cal Raleigh, and he's been
ridiculous.
A big season. And obviously his nickname's the big dumper, but he's been hitting a lot of home runs. He's first in the home run list, right? I think.
He still leads the league. I think he was the first to 40. I watched his 40th home run last night. I had the Mariners Angels game on. Cal Raleigh is just so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's doing all this while not only playing a tough position like catcher, but playing that position well, he's just so impressive. Anyway, I'll get to my rant about the Mariners in a bit, but
yeah, well, 41 home runs for Cal Raleigh, which is first, and 3 ahead of Otani, 4 ahead of Judge. So those are like the top guys, and then Suarez and Schwarber are both up 36 right now. But yeah, I mean, he's been a big story. Obviously, he won the home run derby too, right? So yeah, we'll get to that as well when we get to that. But where was in terms of the AL West, I mean, the Astros at the top. It seems like kind of like the more things change, the more they stay the same, because it feels like they've been their place. I mean, they've won World Series, they've been at the top. I mean, they've been like a thorn in a lot of people's side, I guess, with the whole cheating scandal. Obviously, they beat the Yankees. But then the Rangers are in the mix too. I mean, they're 56-50 as well. They also had their big run to the World Series where they won a couple years ago, and those are pretty much like the top 3 teams. It feels like the Angels and the Athletics are quite a bit back, but yeah, as you noted on our outline, and the A's have swept the Astros in a 4-game series, so that's a little bit of an interesting development. With the last place team sweeping the first place team, all of them were pretty convincing wins too. 15-3 win there by the Oakland A's. Who I guess are going to move to Las Vegas, I believe, in a few seasons. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how that division is shaking up. It feels like it's like still like the Astros division to lose, but the Mariners and the Rangers are both in wild card contention once again.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised to see that A's sweep. But you look at what do you have? Nick Kurtz. Four home run game.
Yeah,
like the first rookie to have a 4-homer game, either in a while or I think it was in MLB history. So the A's have a couple of guys like that who've been a lot of fun to keep track of. Brent Rooker, who was a huge part of All-Star Week, with the home run derby, with the controversy between him and Cal Raleigh. He was a big part of that swing off.
Right.
And I know we'll get into All-Star break stuff, but Tyler Soderstrom, I think he's cooled off since his crazy start to the year. And he's played like 3 different positions this year alone. He started off at catcher, moved to first. Now they've been playing him out in the outfield, and what Lawrence Butler's been doing. Like, I think the A's have fun pieces. And I think there was definitely a point earlier in this year where I was like, wait a minute, are the A's a team to watch? But I think they definitely were just on a heater. And they've since kind of fallen off and revealed their true colors as just they're still not there yet. And I hope that for the sake of that fan base that they can sort of find something. They're starting to build pieces. The A's almost feel like they could possibly be in a spot like the Phillies were, coming into this latest run in the 2020s, right? In the late 2010s, the Phillies were terrible. They were always toward the bottom of that division. A lot of homegrown talent. You had guys like, I think Maikel Franco was a homegrown guy. Aaron Nola was coming up, where they had a couple of pieces. And they surrounded those pieces with, whatever they could get. It seems like the A's are kind of in a similar trajectory. So, maybe they could have their renaissance like the Phillies have had in this 2020s period within the next couple of years. Maybe it's not until they arrive in Vegas. Who knows? But every now and then the A's will have some crazy stat come out, like the Kurtz game, or like Tyler Soderstrom at the beginning of this year. But yeah, I don't know. As far as the rest of the division, yeah, Houston continues to be inevitable, and I know that everyone's been talking about this, but the crazy thing about what the Astros have done is they've done it with so many injuries. Their rotation has been just completely destroyed. They don't have Yordan Alvarez. With Altuve kind of moving in between the infield and the outfield, I think they've finally settled on him being back at second base. Astros are another team where they've had kind of contributions from a lot of different places, because they kind of they got rid of a lot of their big pieces from those World Series runs. Tucker's gone, Bregman's gone. Not that Verlander has really been himself this year, but Verlander was a huge part of some of those Astros World Series runs, and he's in San Francisco now. But the Astros are still doing this, getting contributions from, I think Zach Short has done some stuff for them. I think a big name for the Astros this year has been Cam Smith, who was part of that Kyle Tucker trade. I know that they've been, there's a few spots where they have particular holes. I think Yainer Diaz has not really been having a great season at catcher. And I know they've been sort of searching for a first baseman. And I know from firsthand experience the struggles of Christian Walker at the beginning of this year, because I drafted him in fantasy, and my God, he was terrible to start this year. I believe he started to turn things around for them, but yeah, it's crazy how the Astros have managed to do what they've done with such a different roster and the slew of injuries that they've dealt with. But I know that the Mariners have been having a fun season, and I mentioned before that I wanted to rant about the Mariners a little bit. I've really enjoyed watching the Seattle Mariners. I think it's obviously, you hear a lot about how T-Mobile Park it's so hard to hit there. And maybe that's part of the reason why their pitching has had so much success. You look at what Logan Gilbert's done for the past couple of years. You look at maybe to a lesser extent, but George Kirby. I think Bryce Miller's been having a pretty rough year, but that whole Mariners rotation, I've only ever heard sort of positive talk about them over these past few years and what they've built with their pitching staff. And I think the Mariners, I like that they're being aggressive. I like that they're going to get guys like Josh Naylor. It's going to be tough. I feel like we are going to see a slow sort of start to Josh Naylor's Mariners career. I don't know if he's done too much so far, but I kind of expect a slow start, and then maybe he'll sort of settle into T-Mobile Park. I know it's tough to hit there. But Cal Raleigh hasn't struggled too much. He's still having an historic catcher season in a notoriously pitcher-friendly park, which is impressive from his standpoint. But the Mariners are one of those teams that I have MLB TV, so I can watch a lot of different games, and I usually do. But there's a team, obviously I'm going to tune into my Phillies whenever I can. But out of all the other teams, I think the team that I'm the most excited to tune into outside of the Phillies is probably the Mariners. I don't know why. It's just I like their broadcast booth, and I think they're doing a lot of things right this season. I think they have their shortcomings, but I really hope that for that fan base, the Seattle Mariners can figure things out and get into the postseason and make some noise. Because I think that fan base has kind of been starved for it. They've been the team that's kind of been on the outside looking in for a lot of the time lately. And I think this feels like a year where they might have the pieces to get in and make some noise. And I'd love to see that for them. The Rangers, I didn't even realize that the Mariners and Rangers were tied, because it just doesn't feel like the Rangers have been having that kind of season. But I think that's mostly that horrid start that they had kind of clouding my vision of what the Rangers season has been.
They're 9-1 in their last 10. So
I guess they've been on a heater. I didn't really realize, and they have the best run differential in that division. I guess they've really sort of stormed back. And the Rangers have a couple fun pieces. I think they have a pretty strong rotation that's been really helping keep them afloat while the offense has started to figure things out lately. Marcus Semien is another guy that I had in fantasy that was really struggling to start the year. And as far as I've heard, I think he's really started to come around as well. So, good for the Rangers. We talked about the A's a little bit. Angels, who knows? The Angels every year, I'm just like, what are they doing? What is going on in Anaheim? I have no idea. I can't even begin to figure out this Angels organization. Yeah, I don't know. Looking at these numbers, they've done fine at home. They've done not so good on the road. They've just kind of been middling, and that's where they're at. I don't think the Angels are going anywhere anytime soon. I don't have very high expectations for them right now. I think they need something to change, and I don't know what that is yet. Because every time I think they're going in the right direction, they're just not. Was it 2023 where they had the crazy trade deadline and then they just tore it all down again? I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of all I got on the Angels. They are so confounding. No clue.
Yeah. It's kind of like a weird division or a weird team overall. But yeah, it looks like the Astros kind of back in the front. And then the Mariners. Yeah, I totally agree about your sentiment with that. Like, they do seem like a really fun team, especially with Cal Raleigh having the season he had. And it feels like they've kind of been in the playoff contention for like a while. But yeah, they haven't really made much noise. I remember they were in the playoffs against like the Astros a few years ago, and I think they like won one of the games, if I'm not mistaken, and it got everyone kind of excited. But then the Astros stormed back to win that series. Is that accurate? I hope I'm not just like making that up. But I remember they were in the series against them. Maybe they I forgot. I think they did win one of the games, but then they didn't win the series. But
2022, they were swept by the Astros in division series, but they swept the Blue Jays in that wild card series. And those 2022 Blue Jays, they were 2022 Blue Jays. I think had a lot of people excited. But
yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, they swept the Jays, and then they got swept by the Astros. If I'm not mistaken, one of those games went to like extra innings, like quite a bit of extra innings or something.
Yes, that was a super long. I thought that was with Cleveland. I think that might have been 2020. No, I think it was the Mariners. There was definitely a super long game in there. It was like 17 innings or something.
Yeah,
insane.
It was like pretty ridiculous. Yeah.
But yeah, those 2022 Astros, I'm not particularly fond of that team.
Yeah, neither am I. Anyway, so yeah, I remember that. So I mean, they've been knocking on that door for some time, but I guess shifting over now to the NL side of things. I mean, we obviously started with like the Yankees Phillies series, but I mean, in the NL, it seems like it's really a 2-team race between the Mets and the Phillies, and obviously the Mets, they cooled down for a while, but lately they've been pretty hot again. Yeah, I mean they swept the Angels, and then going over to the other coast, to the West Coast. Now they swept not swept yet, but they're in their last game against the other Giants, the San Francisco Giants. I was gonna say the New York Giants. It's like it's the wrong sport, but it seems like they're on a little bit of a West Coast like swing, and then they'll play the Giants. It's always weird how the scheduling does that. It's like the Yankees too, like they they're playing the Rays at home, and then they go right to Florida to play the Marlins, and then they're playing the Rangers, and then they're coming home to play the Astros, who are also from Texas. I don't know. I feel like I've seen a lot of that lately. It's like really interesting with the geography. But in any case, the Mets at the top of that division, but the Phillies are like right behind. It seems like they've been both like back and forth like all year. I mean, obviously we talked about the Phillies taking 2 of 3 from the Yankees, but you probably like, that division, obviously, and like how your Phillies have been doing, how the Mets have been doing. So like, I guess, what can you tell us about how that race has been going on and what you expect to come in the rest of the season?
Yeah. Every time it's felt like the Mets maybe were starting to slide and clear away for us. It's kind of felt like they've turned things around every time. The Mets are frustratingly good, and
they have Juan Soto now coming in from the Yankees, obviously.
Yeah,
he hasn't really been that great, has he? Like, I
mean, he had a slow start, but he's been tearing it up. I think now. As the summer months have sort of come on and heated up. When you looked at Juan Soto's numbers in the first like month or so, and they weren't great. Looking at him right now, he's got an 875 OPS. Like, he's leading that lineup. He has a better OPS than Pete Alonso, who's been tearing it up all year.
That's true.
So Juan Soto is another one of those guys he's inevitable. It doesn't matter where he goes. He's going to give you a great year, and he's going to be a pain to deal with for the next 15 years. But those darn Mets, they just keep figuring it out. The crazy thing to me about what the Mets have been able to do over these past couple of years is that they just keep finding guys out of nowhere. where did Mark Vientos come from? Where do they get these pitchers? David Peterson, who should not have been an all-star, over Christopher Sanchez, but I digress. The Mets just keep finding pieces. They don't even have to go anywhere. I mean, obviously, you got Steve Cohen, who's going to pay top dollar for guys like Juan Soto. He's going to, the fact that they found a way to re-sign Alonso. But, I mean, where are they getting these guys? And why can't we have some? Like, you know what I mean? The Mets are just finding guys. Like I said, Mark Vientos, you have, Brett Beatty, who I don't think Brett Beatty's a little bit weird. I think he's had some ups and downs. But I think the ups have come at a good time for Beatty. Tyrone Taylor, I think, kind of coming out of nowhere, and I think he's been contributing for them. But the pitching has really been what's crazy for them. They're turning guys like Sean Manaea, who was never a bad pitcher, but the season he had last year, and I think he's back now pitching well. Just the guys that the Mets have managed to find, and the fact that they're putting together seasons like they are, the Mets feel like they have a pretty complete roster, and I hate that for my Phillies, because the Phillies have, I feel like, more obvious holes than the Mets do. I think, I mean, obviously this is kind of a cop out, but I feel like this is going to be a tight race all the way to the end.
Right.
But ultimately, I don't know. I feel like it's going to come down to if the Phillies can add a couple good pieces at the deadline, because they desperately need some good pieces. I feel like if they don't do much at this deadline, I feel like they're setting themselves up to be in the wild card. I feel like there's a lot of pressure. I feel like it's kind of the Mets division to lose, which I hate saying that. But, looking at some sort of behind the scenes type things, the Phillies have the better run differential, but the Mets have the better record against better teams. The Mets have a 28-21 record against teams over 500. Phillies are 500 exactly. They're 29-29. It seems like the Phillies really struggle with good pitching. You saw it in this Yankee series I was talking about. Will Warren and Marcus Stroman, they were able to get to. Maybe not so much Warren, but especially Stroman. Then you get all-star Carlos Rodon, and he's making him look silly. He's completely neutralized Schwarber. Harper didn't really do anything. I think the top three in the Phillies order were 0 for 12 today. And they've struggled a lot against good pitching. And they've certainly had games where they've gotten to good pitchers, but I think that's definitely an Achilles heel for us, is that we've really feasted on, the non-top caliber pitchers. I can't remember if the Phillies faced Garrett. I think they faced Crochet in that Red Sox series. And I'm pretty sure he got us quite a bit. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to which team can hit playoff caliber pitching better. Is going to determine, who's going to go further in the playoffs ultimately. I think both teams are going to make it. I think it's really hard to count either of these teams out of the playoffs entirely. It's just a matter of where they're going to be seated. And I don't know if this is just like 2022 nostalgia goggles talking, but part of me, a small, tiny little sliver of me, almost hopes that the Phillies kind of get kicked in the nuts, sent to the wild card, and then they get pissed. I kind of hope that I don't want them to try and replicate the 2022 run, because that's only going to lead them into the ground. I just hope that I hope that something gives them fire, and if that's what it takes, then so be it. And I know that it's been kind of a controversial thing of, the team that wins the division has the whole week off, and that can mess with your rhythm. I don't think that's really happened, and I think the team that's proved that the most is the Astros. I think they've had a ton of success with that bye week at the end of the season in these last couple of years. And I think they're going to, if they end up getting that bye week again, which I don't know if they will. But if they do, I think they'll do fine again. So I don't think that's necessarily the issue that's not why I would, that small sliver of me wants the Phillies in the wild card. I think it's more of a mentality thing. I think, Philly thrives as the underdog. And I know that sounds silly to a New York fan, but look at 2022, the years that Philly teams have been counted out, at least the years that the Philly teams have been good but have been counted out, are the years where they've had the most success. You hear all the players talk about it. You hear, Jason Kelsey's whole, spiel at the Super Bowl parade after the 2017-18 Super Bowl. that people counted them out and all this stuff. I think they need to lean into that identity, as silly as that might sound. If they can do that, if they can add a couple pieces, I think they could set themselves up for success and maybe at least last a little longer in the playoffs. Because man, that division series against the Mets, that's going to horrify me for years. But sorry, I didn't mean to go that long into Phillies Mets stuff. But I guess my only other big points on the NL East, it's been really satisfying as a Phillies fan to watch the Braves crumble as much as they have.
Yeah.
And I know that I know that we wanted to talk about like what's making the Braves struggle. So I looked into it a little bit, and I mean, as obvious as it might seem, the Braves can't score. It's really been an offensive issue for the Braves, and I don't know where that's coming from because they have the same core they've had. They still have Acuna, they still have Marcell Ozuna, they still have Austin Riley, they still have Ozzie Albies, they still have Matt Olson. It's the same team they've been running out there for years, maybe missing a couple of pieces. That 2022 team, it was basically the same group. I think maybe they had a different left fielder, and that's it. But they've had a couple of guys really struggle this year. I think Michael Harris has been a guy who's like really, really struggled for him this year. Austin Riley, I think, is having a bit of a down year. And I think the only guy that's really been going for them has been Ronald Acuna. And he's always going to go. Ronald Acuna is, man, he's another guy that as a Phillies fan, I hate how good he is. And you can't deny it. It's impossible to deny how good of a player Ronald Acuna Jr. is. But
True.
yeah, they just have not gotten anything going. They're 27-39 against teams over 500, which I didn't even know until I just looked at it just now. Like they're not going well against good teams. They're not scoring a ton of runs, and they have a couple guys who've been pitching, but I think they lost Smith Shawver. But yeah, it's been a really weird year for the Braves. I think it's kind of back-to-back weird years with the whole, injury-riddled 2024 and the tiebreaker postseason eligibility game 163 last year, and then they get just decimated by the Padres in the playoffs. It's been a weird trajectory for the Braves. I'm hearing a lot of rumors about Marcell Ozuna swirling around, so maybe this is the time where the Braves kind of sort of soft rebuild, get rid of a couple of expiring contracts and try and just find that right couple of pieces that can get them going next year. Because I honestly don't think this Braves sort of down time will last very long. I think the Braves are going to be right back where they've been soon. Not this year, but soon. And then I guess the only other story of the NL East has been the Marlins. They've been shocking with what they've been doing lately. I really thought the Marlins were going to have like one of the worst seasons in a while, looking at what they were on paper at the beginning of this season. But, the contributions they've gotten from a number of I think they have the youngest offense in all of baseball. And what they've been able to put together with that, the fact that they're even close to 500 this late into the season is pretty surprising. I don't think they can really have a shot at the playoffs. But if they can end this season close to 500, I think they've got a lot to be proud of there. I think they made a lot of the moves that they made at the 2024 trade deadline are really starting to pan out. You see Kyle Stowers, who was their only all-star. They got him for Trevor Rogers from Baltimore. I think they got Stowers and another prospect in exchange for Trevor Rogers, who's been having a decent year for Baltimore. But, what Kyle Stowers has been doing, the Marlins are another team where they're getting a lot of contributions from guys you just haven't heard of. I was talking about that with the Blue Jays. But the difference between the Marlins and the Blue Jays is that the Marlins only have those guys that you haven't really heard of before. They have, Agustín Ramirez. They have Javier Sanoja. They have Otto Lopez. I mean, I guess Otto Lopez was a little bit more to that extent. But, Xavier Edwards. Like this whole Marlins roster is full of guys that they're definitely not household names, but they're contributing more than I certainly would have expected to this point. If you told me at the beginning of this season that the Braves were below the Marlins in the standings with less than 60 games left to go in the season, I would not have believed you in 1,000 years. I would have smiled when I heard it, and it makes me smile to think about now. But it's crazy what the Marlins have been able to put together.
Yeah.
and I'm not looking forward to. I was just thinking about this earlier when I was watching the Phillies-Yankees game. The Phillies haven't played the Marlins in a minute, and I'm worried about when they play them next because I don't know when that is. And I'm assuming it's probably in September when it's going to matter, and it's going to be a frustrating series to watch because it always is. It's always frustrating. Yep, early September is the next time we play the Marlins, and then we play them again at the end of September. So it's going to be 2 Marlins series in September. We'll see if they cool off by then. I mean, it's only the end of July now, but yeah,
Right.
Marlins, pretty crazy stuff. The only other surprise from the Marlins has been how rough Sandy Alcantara's start was. He's starting to find it, and I think he's been put into a spot where the Marlins, I almost don't expect them to trade him anymore. I thought they were going to, but now I don't know if they will. The Marlins are in such a weird spot. Because I think, a couple weeks ago when they weren't on this tear, you would have thought, okay, the Marlins they're gonna have a crazy another classic Marlins fire sale and get rid of anybody who they can get prospects back for. But at this point, I think I don't know what they're gonna do at this deadline. I don't know if they're gonna do much of anything. But yeah, Marlins have been weird. It's been a very weird year at the bottom of the NL East, and then the Phillies Mets has been the sort of 2-horse race, and it's going to continue to be a 2-horse race, just like everyone expected. So it's been kind of a little bit of both from the NL East.
Really interesting division there. Certainly looks like it is definitely going to be a 2-team race. When your points to the Marlins, the Braves dealing with a lot of injuries. I mean, the Mets, Phillies. I think that is going to go towards the end of the year. I think something I was seeing that was interesting. I think that I sent you on social media was that, the Phillies fans, like, they flooded the Yankee Stadium, and a lot of Mets fans were like, this would never happen at Citi Field. And I thought that was interesting when they started doing the Eagles chant and all of that. So I thought that was interesting because I guess the Phillies and Mets do play each other like quite a bit more than the Yankees and Phillies do, or the Yankees and Mets for that matter either.
Yeah, those Eagles chants. And listen, I've been on this podcast before talking about the Birds. I love me some Birds. But Eagles chants. First of all, I don't like them when they're at Citizens Bank Park. I think they're corny as hell when they're at Citizens Bank Park. But today, what really frustrated me was the fact that it was the 4th inning of a game that we were losing with our ace struggling, and we're still doing Eagles chants. And it's like that really frustrated me. I was already not enjoying what I was seeing from my team. But at that point, I was like, how? Oh man,
this is weird.
It's just not the place for it. And listen, I get it. If you're bored at a game, whatever, you can do whatever you want. They probably had a couple drinks, whatever. But it's just like that really got to me. The Eagles chants are so silly. I would understand it if it was like September and football season's starting to get underway and they play that weekend, or like, let's say for instance, a Phillies Mets game, although I know that there's not a ton of overlap between Mets and Giants fans, really. Am I right on that?
It's like Yankees Giants, and
I know it's more of like a Mets
mix, but it's more like Yankees Giants and then Mets Jets. It's usually there's 2 schools of thought on that. Yeah, I mean, some people mix it up, but yeah, I feel like most Yankees fans are Giants fans, and they usually tend to also be Knicks and Rangers fans, and then the second half of it's like the Mets, the Jets, sometimes the Nets, the Devils, Islanders. Like, I kind of mix it up a little bit, but typically, the way it is like the Mets and Jets go together very strongly. The Yankees and Giants go together very strongly. I think to the point where they used to share stadiums too. So I mean, I feel like there's more. I think the Philly fans were trying to instigate something. I mean, I think that definitely would probably get to more Yankees fans because I think there's a lot of Yankees Giants overlap. I'm definitely part of that. But
wait a second, Phillies fans trying to instigate something. They would never.
I don't know. I mean, hey, look, I mean, I think it's all in good fun, but it's just like you said, it's not a baseball game, first of all. Second of all, like, when the team's not even doing well, it's like even more bizarre.
I would get it if it was like Phillies versus Nationals in a late September kind of thing, and like maybe let's say that Birds and Commanders have a big matchup coming up. Then I get it a little bit more. Overlap, I see. But it's just like I didn't like that today. I really didn't like that today.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I guess it was maybe the vibe was a little different because it was there was a win, but even
with a blowout win, but
yeah, it's annoying. I mean, New York fans find it like very annoying, but it's I mean, I know the Jets also have their own like chant too, but it was
You
funny.
don't hear Mets fans doing Jets chants at Mets games.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. I mean, so one of the New York fans was like, in one of the clips, so I was like, they're all such trash. And I kind of was just like laughing, but I was just like, yeah, I mean, it's a Yankees game against the Phillies. And I mean, do you really got to like bring that up? Like, I don't know. But I guess the other part of it was like the whole Mets fans coming in the comments and saying this would never happen at Citi Field. So then to that, some Yankees fans were like, well, Yankees fans took that place over. So there's all that like dialogue, which I think makes for some fun stuff, I guess. But
yeah.
Anyway, I guess moving back towards baseball talk.
I'm just gonna throw another Go Birds in there just to conclude that.
Yeah, man, I really do enjoy having fans that are Philly fans. I will say that it does make for fun dialogue. But going back to the Central, that's another division where it's like a 2-team race because you have the Cubs and the Brewers, who are both pretty hot teams. They're both 62 and 43, and then Cincinnati Reds 56 and 50. And then kind of like the Cardinals, the Pirates are not really in the conversation, although Paul Skeens has been having like a terrific year. It just hasn't really been amounting to much, but it really does seem like a 2-team race, kind of just like we are talking about the NL East. Like both of these teams are tied, so I mean the Brewers have kind of come out of nowhere too. They've been pretty red hot, and then the Cubs as well. I mean they have a big series coming up actually as coming up too. So I mean, I guess I'll probably determine who has first place in the division for a little while. So I mean, I guess what's your take on like those 3 teams or those 2 teams and the rest of the division as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Brewers and Cubs being good doesn't really surprise me. What surprises me about this division, I mean, first of all, is where the Reds are at right now. I never would have expected them to be a stone's throw from the playoffs at this point of the year with what they've got going on there. But I don't know, they've just gotten really good pitching lately. I think a couple of their offensive pieces have been starting to go. Phillies legend Austin Hayes tearing it up in Cincinnati. But in all seriousness, I think another thing that kind of surprises me is I think there was a point where the Cardinals were doing a lot better than they are now, and I really thought it was going to be closer to sort of a 3-horse race in that NL Central. I thought the Cardinals were going to be kind of in it for a while, but they've kind of played themselves out of it a little bit. I think the Cardinals are kind of fading a little bit as this season heads into its final third, into its sort of final stretch. But yeah, the Brewers, Cubs, they've been playing very different brands of baseball. And I mean, the Brewers are just playing the Brewers brand of baseball. They're playing the same way they have for years, and they're having success. They're doing what they've always done, which is, baseball on a budget. A lot of young guys, they're being very aggressive on the base paths. They're, stealing bases, playing defense, pass the baton kind of mentality. The Brewers are another super fun team. They're another team that I'll tune into sometimes. Like if the Phillies are off that day, or if the Phillies already played or whatever, I'll check in on the Brewers every so often because they're just so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I think there was a point in the season where the Brewers were kind of struggling, and their manager Pat Murphy was kind of giving them some heat for it. And it's interesting. It's interesting how different managers can be. And the Cubs and Brewers in particular are 2 teams that it's interesting to talk about managers with, considering the whole Craig Counsell thing, him having been with the Brewers and then sort of switching sides over to the Cubs, and a lot of Brewers fans kind of feeling sort of betrayed by that. And it seems like both managers are doing a really good job with what they're doing. Though I think that, I mean, obviously, there's only so much that a manager contributes to his team's success. But if I had to guess which manager was had more direct impact on their team's success, I would say it's probably the Brewers, just because that's the kind of baseball they play. The Cubs are just mashing. The Cubs, I'm currently looking at standings that on MLB's website, the standings include runs scored, and I'm seeing it looks like the Cubs are toward the top of that. They might be second in the league in runs scored, yeah. And so they're just killing it. They've got a lot of pieces going. They've got Tucker, who's hitting well, Seiya Suzuki, who's like I think the all-star snub of all-star snubs. Him and Trey Turner this year. I mean, those 2 guys I think should have at least been on the roster. Pete Crow Armstrong, I think his sort of MVP campaign has cooled down a little bit, but he was killing it at the beginning of the year. So that whole Cubs outfield, I mean, the infield doing what they do. And not to say that the Cubs don't also play good defense, but defense has been like the name of the game for Milwaukee for years. And the Cubs are just doing a little bit of everything and then excelling offensively, which, that's absolutely a valid strategy. And it's showing by the fact that they're, one of the best teams in baseball. They've got the second best record only to the Blue Jays. But then you look at the Brewers who, they haven't even cracked 500 runs scored yet, which I think places them sort of toward the middle of the pack in terms of the overall league. But, they're always going to have pitching, and it's always going to be guys that, are starting to come up onto the scene. But a lot of their big pieces, Devin Williams is a Yankee now. Josh Hader has been an Astro for the last couple of years. Well, this year and then Padre before that. But, the Brewers are another team like the Astros where they can get rid of their best pieces, maybe not their best pieces, but get rid of some of their big pieces and still be inevitable. And it's really interesting to watch. I think I've also had a soft spot for the Brewers because that's where Rhys Hoskins went after his Phillies tenure. It's been a shame that he's been on the injured list for a little bit now, though I think he's hopefully on his way back soon. And I hope that the Brewers get active at the deadline. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what both of these teams in particular do at the deadline because they have very different strengths and very different weaknesses. Where the Cubs have a ton of thump, but I think they could use some, bullpen help and all this stuff. I think the Brewers could use that one sort of thump bat to really sort of put them over the edge. And I think the Brewers, the rotation is a bit weird because I think Freddie Peralta, I think he was an all-star, but I don't think he's having the season that he would like to be having, albeit still a good one. But, you got Brandon Woodruff coming back and being Brandon Woodruff. Jose Quintana was an interesting pickup for them, and I think I just watched him pitch the other day. But I don't know. They're two very different teams currently sitting in the same spot. So it'll be interesting to see how much more those paths continue to sort of diverge and where those two teams end up in the thick of it. But it's another one of those NL divisions that's just going to be a two-team race. And I think you don't really see any of that anywhere else. It's like the NL East and the NL Central are your two-team races, and everywhere else there's like a clear front runner, and then some teams that are sort of trying to make their way in. Because that's what this current postseason format is. You get in and anything can happen. And we'll see what that anything manifests itself as we go forward. But
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it does feel like that one's a two-team division as well as the East. I guess before we get into the West, I mean, another thing about the Phillies, like, it seems like they had their best years, like, when they were, like, a wild card team, and, like, obviously the year they won the division, like, they lost. So, I mean, that's something that, I guess that's kind of what you were referring to when you said, like, when they, right, like, and that's kind of like what you're referring to when you said, like, I mean, you don't really want that to happen, but, like, if that kind of positions them to have that kind of run, because sometimes it feels like sometimes the wild card teams are the ones who, like, to do better.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends. We've definitely seen both. We've seen wild card teams kind of come out of nowhere and end up going all the way, like the Diamondbacks in 2023.
Right.
They were a wild card team. They made it all the way to the World Series and just, ran out of steam. Same thing happened to the Phillies in 22. The Diamondbacks literally had a Phillies 2022-esque run of being a wild card team. No one expected them to do anything, and then they just steamrolled their way to the World Series and then just ran out of that steam.
Yeah.
So, there are sort of benefits and fallbacks to both sides, right? You have the Astros who can win the division and go all the way, and they can be a wild card team and, still be totally fine. As far as these two NL Central teams, I mean, it's weird because I think in previous years, the NL Central was like division or bust.
Right.
Whereas this year, I think, obviously one of these teams is not going to win the division. But maybe that team that doesn't win the division is the one that, ends up going further. I don't know. It'd be really interesting to watch what happens there. And I'd be interested to gauge kind of where those two fan bases are at with, do you want the division or, do you just care about let's win as many games as we can, even if we don't win the division, let's just get in this thing? I'd be interested to see like where those two fan bases are at with that.
Yeah. Like you said, we could see the same thing with the Mets Phillies too. I mean, both of these teams are probably gonna make the playoffs. One's gonna be division winner, one's gonna be probably top wild card, or maybe the second wild card, because the Brewers. I mean, all four of them are pretty strong, over 60 wins. They're both clearly like ahead, so we're probably gonna have two division winners and two wild cards just out of that group if things stay the same way. But I mean, like last year, I think was a representation of like when division winners do really well. I mean, the Dodgers and the Yankees were like two best teams. They made it to the World Series. The Dodgers won, 4-1. And speaking of them, they're once again in the first spot in the NL West, which is our last division on this division tour that we're going on. But they've also kind of been a little bit cold as of late. I mean, they had a stretch, I think, where they lost a bunch in a row. They got swept by the Brewers, but then lately they've kind of been coming. Then they swept the Twins. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox, so they're 4-6 in their last 10. They've been a little bit cold, but still, I guess kind of like the Astros in their rightful place at the top. And then in the wild card spot, you have or the second place team right now, the Padres, who are only 4 games behind them, so they're certainly making some noise as of late too. I guess they play the Mets after the series against the Giants, and then the Giants. They're 2-8 in their last 10, so they're kind of a little bit fading away. They got they took 2 of 3 against the Braves, and then looks like they lost the first 2 to the Mets, but they're third. And then behind them you have the Diamondbacks, 51-55, who I think you were saying it earlier, but they made their decision to kind of sell at the deadline. And then we have the Rockies, who are 27-78, which is basically kind of like even worse than where the White Sox were like last year. So it's definitely interesting to see. Like they had a horrid start. I feel like they've gotten a little bit better as of late, but they're still definitely losing a lot more games than they're winning, although they are 5-5 in their last 10. But I mean, that's the Rockies for you, I guess. But on the other side, I mean, the Dodgers doing pretty well. The Padres are definitely pretty competitive as well. And then, the Giants are a little bit farther behind, but the Rockies pretty awful. So what are your thoughts, I guess, on the Dodgers and the rest of the NL West?
Yeah. The Dodgers are interesting because they're another team that they've been kind of riddled by injuries this year. And I think those injuries are they're kind of starting to affect them now. Not to say that, that's the only reason they're struggling, because, I don't mean to. I don't want anybody to think I'm using injuries as an excuse for this Dodgers team, because good teams struggle too. And one underlying thing that I didn't realize about the Dodgers that I'm seeing now is that they have a losing record against teams that are over 500. These Dodgers, they seem like another team that's really maybe feasting on teams that aren't doing so hot. I'm sure they've played plenty of games against the Rockies and.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're not having as much success beating teams like the Red Sox, who they just lost 2 out of 3 of. And so I think not only are the injuries kind of a factor for them, but they seem like they're really struggling against, not really struggling, but they might need to sort of turn things around against good teams. Their run differential is not really where I would have expected it to be at this point. Run differential at 66, plus 66. So, I mean, they're scoring more than they're allowing, but it's not by as much as I would think. And it seems to me like allowing runs has been a bit of a problem for the Dodgers with, some of their back end bullpen guys. Tanner Scott, I think, has been kind of on a skid before he came out with the injury. You're seeing a lot of, unexpected names. Alexis Diaz showing up in that Dodgers bullpen, and I don't think he's been great for them since getting there. Not that he's had too many appearances there, but if I pull up the Dodgers pitchers right now, Kershaw's doing what he can. But yeah, just seeing some of these names on this Dodgers active roster right now, as far as the pitching, it's not exactly what you expect out of a reigning World Series champ, and it's just because of how many injuries they've had. But they need the guys who aren't injured to step up still. just saying, oh, we have a ton of injuries, so we're struggling it's not enough. You need,
Right.
if you want to be a championship caliber team like the Dodgers have proven they can be, you need those guys who can step up in place of the injured guys. And I think that's something that maybe not so much in the pitching end, but for the Phillies in particular, I think they've had a couple position players do that over the years. I mean, you've got Otto Kemp hitting 2 solo shots today versus the Yankees stepping up while Alec Boehm is out hurt. You've got Edmundo Sosa, who's really stepped up in certain moments, but they haven't really found pitchers who have done that to the same extent. And I think the same is true for the Dodgers, where, they have plenty of position players who are doing what they can. Andy Pages has been ridiculous for them this year. He's kind of come out of nowhere. Hae-Sung Kim, after a slow start, after he got called up, I think he's finally sort of settled in and found his place, found his role. And Will Smith, I think when you talk about the Dodgers, I feel like you have to talk about Will Smith, because there's so much talk about, Cal Raleigh doing all this historic stuff for catchers. Will Smith has been like basically not far behind him in terms of catcher offensive stats. And I think he's been a big reason that the Dodgers have had the success that they've had. Not alone, of course, but you pair a guy like Will Smith with Shohei Ohtani, who, there's only so much you can say about Shohei Ohtani before you're repeating yourself. But, when you have guys like Mookie Betts, who's not having a career year, he's dealing with some personal stuff. I think he was dealing with an illness to start the year. It's been a weird year for Mookie Betts. So when you have guys who aren't quite having that same year that they're expected, that's sort of expected of them, it's nice to see guys like Will Smith kind of step up and have the kind of season he's having. And the Dodgers are going to need him to keep doing what he's doing if they want to keep pace. I mean, I don't realistically foresee either the Padres or Giants necessarily catching and overtaking the Dodgers. I think they could make it close. Though the Padres are confusing too, because the Padres have been even worse against good teams. Their run differential is not great. They're 5-5 over their last 10. Their pitching staff has been fine. I don't know. The Padres are in a weird spot for me. But I think if they can get hot at the right time, I think they could definitely make a run and get into the playoffs. And they've taken down the Dodgers before. They came super close to taking down the world champion 2024 Dodgers. They just fell short by 1 game.
Yeah, right.
And then the Giants. The Giants are weird because their ace Logan Webb. I have him in fantasy, so I'm super familiar with what he's been doing lately. He's had a couple of clunker starts in a row, and when your ace has clunker starts, it can be tough to sort of feel good about where you're at. I know for me, watching Zach Wheeler have kind of 2 clunker starts in a row has been a little concerning. And so the Giants are kind of, I think they're still looking for some really solid pitching answers. They're getting some fun contributions from a few interesting places. They're actually over 500, or yes, they're over 500 against teams that are over 500. But they're 28-27. So the Giants have been decent against good teams. If they can keep doing that, I think they could at least kind of keep pace. But this seems like another case like the AL East where there's kind of a front runner, and then there's these 2 teams kind of vying for that last spot. If it were up to, not if it were up to me, but if you're asking for my prediction, I think the Giants will fall out of the race by the time maybe September hits. And I think it'll be Dodgers, and the Padres will be maybe, sort of competing with maybe the Reds. I don't know. The Reds might fall out of it soon too. We might have a good idea of the NL playoff picture by the middle of September. Which is weird to say because, there's so many teams that are doing some good things, but it definitely feels a little bit more clear right now who the good teams are in the National League versus who are the teams that are kind of heading in the wrong direction. And I think the Giants might be one of those teams with Devers struggling, and he was your big trade piece and he's just not doing it for you.
Right.
But who knows? Devers could go on a crazy heater and help lead the Giants to getting right back into contention, and maybe that'd be cool. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I think if it's going to be anybody in the NL West, it's going to be the Padres, just because that's who it's been the last couple of years. And I just don't think that the Giants right now have what it takes to overtake the Padres. But that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. You're probably right about that. I would guess. Considering like how much I know, but yeah. I mean, and then I guess the other question is like if the Padres could catch the Dodgers, if the Dodgers are or if the Dodgers are gonna I guess continue to do what they usually do. Yeah. I mean, I guess it brings us kind of to the end of this division series here. I was just looking at the Dodgers' path. I forgot that they won that series 3-2 against the Padres last year, and then they beat the Mets 4-2, the Yankees 4-1. So it's like each time it like got easier in a weird way. And they also played both of the New York teams in back-to-back series. So that's probably a lot of like frequent flyer miles, I guess, going back and forth like that. But not that that really matters. But yeah, I mean, obviously that was their path last year. So we'll see what happens this time. I mean, yeah, playoff picture. Maybe we can get to that like at the end. We could do a little like World Series predictions now that we're kind of like a lot closer than we were back when we did this in the off season. But I guess some more thoughts on just the All-Star break. Obviously like we talked about Cal Raleigh. He won, winning the home run derby. I think for me as a Yankees fan, it was kind of funny to see like Jazz Chisholm's like three home run performances because he wasn't really like trying to hit home runs that much. He was because he didn't want to affect his swing, and his whole press conference with that was just kind of funny about what he was saying. All the fans were just like not having that, but anyway, I mean, so like, what are your thoughts on the whole festivities of All-Star Weekend, and then obviously the home run swing off at the end with the NL winning it behind Schwarber's 3-for-3. I mean, I think that it was just a neat way to end, having that game go to extra innings. And, I thought it was, I don't really, as someone who doesn't really watch a ton of baseball, I thought that game was, and the way that it ended was very exciting.
Yeah. I think this was the best All-Star game I've watched in a long time. And not that I've watched every single All-Star game, but since 2022, I've watched every All-Star game. And out of those 4 games, this has been by far my favorite. I thought the home run derby was pretty good. Although I did watch they had like an alternate broadcast of like the StatCast edition.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't watch the primary home run derby broadcast, and I had a great time watching the home run derby on that StatCast version. But I have heard some sort of, I've heard some mixed reviews of the main sort of ESPN broadcast of the home run derby. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed watching the derby. And as a Brent Rooker fantasy owner, I was a little bit peeved that Brent Rooker got scammed by like less than a foot. But
Yeah.
I also had a feeling that Cal Raleigh was going to win it, and I think it was a cool story that he did. And I'm not one of the people that thinks that MLB staged it or something. That'd be silly, but history was made. I think that's always super cool. I had a lot of fun watching that derby.
That's a good one, definitely.
It was definitely a good derby. It was definitely surprising to see that result from Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah,
I definitely was not expecting. I think I might have actually predicted for him to have a good derby, which is not great for my prediction skills. But yeah, that was pretty surprising. Junior Caminero. I mean, I knew he was good, but I didn't realize he had that kind of power. Caminero had a great derby, and it was just a lot of fun to watch. And then the All-Star game, like I mentioned, I think that was one of the best I've seen in a long time. I think the Hank Aaron tribute was one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a baseball broadcast.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
As much as it hurts my soul to give the Braves credit for anything, I have to give them credit for that, because that gave me goosebumps like nothing I've seen on a baseball broadcast. That Hank Aaron tribute. The game was good. I always like getting the opportunity to listen to Joe Davis call a game. So every now and then I'll tune into Dodgers broadcasts just to listen to him talk. He's one of my favorites on the broadcast. But yeah, I mean, All-Star game was a good game. You have it on the sheet, the National League taking the early lead, and then the AL putting together a really convincing rally.
Yeah.
I actually didn't realize that they changed the rule about the way the All-Star game would end. I
Yeah.
hadn't heard about that, and so when they said that on the broadcast, I got really excited, and I think that was such a good idea. I think it was so much fun to watch that unfold, and that swing off. I will say I was really, really surprised at the American League's lineup in that swing off. The fact that it was, who was it? It was Rooker.
Yeah.
It was who else was in that? Jonathan Aranda was in it, and then I can't remember who the third one was. It was Brent Rooker, Jonathan Aranda, and wow, I'm drawing a blank.
It wasn't Aaron Judge.
It was not Aaron Judge. It was not Cal Raleigh. It was not a lot of those guys that have huge power and huge ability to just do that. And I don't know if that's entirely on Aaron Boone, but I remember at the time being like, "Oh, come on, Boone, what are you doing? This could have been so much better." But I honestly, now looking back, I realize that could have been sort of outside of Aaron Boone's control, ultimately.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
But
yeah,
it was super fun to watch that swing off happen, and as a Phillies fan, to watch Kyle Schwarber win All-Star MVP in Atlanta was icing on the cake. And I know that there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, it should have been Alonso because he actually hit his home run during the game." Sure, but I don't know. It's whatever. Maybe it should have been Alonso, but I mean, I think you can still very much give Alonso credit for having a super clutch swing like he does a lot of the time.
Right.
But it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't his swing that won the game for the National League. Technically, not that that's his fault. Not that that's Alonso's fault. And anybody who's listening is going to be like, "Oh, Phillies fans saying whatever about Alonso." Pete Alonso's great. Don't get me wrong. And he probably should have won it if you're taking just the contents of the 9-inning game into account. But at the same time, the home run swing off is part of it is part of the game. It's the swing off is what gave the National League the win. The reason that the National League won the game was because of Schwarber making him the most valuable player in that ultimate result. Anyway,
yeah,
Pete Alonso had a great game.
Yeah.
It was a great swing from Alonso. Not to discredit him at all. He deserves a ton of credit for doing that during the game. But it was super cool to see Schwarber raise that glass bat trophy on the Truist Park field. That was super cool. And it gave me a big old grin. But ton of credit to the Braves for the Hank Aaron tribute and just a great overall sort of couple days of festivities. I do wish that Zach Wheeler were able to pitch in that game, but I think he had another start. I think he started like the Sunday before it or something, and he wouldn't have been on full rest. And then I still think Christopher Sanchez easily should have made that All-Star team. He's been having a crazy season, Christopher Sanchez. I think he's a 2.4 ERA. He's just racking up quality starts and racking up strikeouts on his changeup. And I don't know. He's been one of the better pitchers in the National League. Again, not to discredit David Peterson, who did make the All-Star team. I just think that Christopher Sanchez has been statistically better than Peterson in most, if not all, stats. I mean, I haven't checked that for sure. But anyway, not to rant about all the Phillies aspects of this All-Star break, but it was a great time. It was some of the most fun I've had watching All-Star stuff over the last couple of years. So I don't know. I think Major League Baseball did a great job with this All-Star week.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, from the tribute was really special. That was really cool to see. And then just the way the game went too. I mean, with the AL coming back from 6-0 down, and then the swing off was really cool. And obviously, Schwarber winning that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with your logic in terms of he was the one who actually won the game in terms of like how it was decided and everything. So I could definitely see that. But it was definitely really fun weekend. And yeah, I mean, in terms of Jazz Chisholm, that was kind of surprising that I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you hitting the doubles and not the home runs? But anyway, I mean, I really do like him as a player. I think alongside Max Fried, I mean, they've both been really good standouts, and then of course Aaron Judge for the Yankees. But I guess to end off this MLB special here, well, we could focus on the trade deadline because I know that's coming up, and there's already been a ton of moves, at least a number of moves that have been made. Obviously for the Yankees, adding Ryan McMahon from the Rockies was the big one, and I think he had a big game today actually too, which can led them into the win.
He had a couple of good plays, but yeah, I mean it's been a bit of a down year for McMahon. Where let me check the box score from that. I think he had a hit or two maybe, but yeah, I don't know. I think Ryan McMahon is going to be a huge pickup for the Yankees. Obviously, in terms of the defense, you mentioned early on that they've been having a good amount of trouble with that, especially infield defense. I mean, Anthony Volpe going from a Gold Glover, one of the better defensive shortstops in all of baseball, to just really struggling this year. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's this that he's putting a ton of pressure on himself, because it definitely doesn't seem like the pressure's coming from like Aaron Boone or the higher ups. Because every time I see an Aaron Boone interview about Volpe or anything, he's always defending him. Which I don't have any opinions on that. Whatever, defend your players, whatever. I know some Yankees fans have been a little frustrated with how much he's been defending Volpe, but it's just really surprising to see the shift for him defensively. And so I think picking up both, Ryan McMahon, and then they just picked up Ahmed Rosario yesterday or today. He's going to be a huge defensive upgrade. And I think, I think that's kind of been the big thing the Yankees have sought, since that World Series loss, since that fifth inning. I'm sure Brian Cashman has been like, we're fixing this now. So he goes and gets Cody Bellinger, who had a couple of nice plays in the outfield today, and he's had a ton of nice plays in the outfield this season. You go pick up Ryan McMahon, you move Jazz Chisholm back to his primary position. And I know that there's been all this talk of Jazz Chisholm at third base. And then, the Marlins made him an outfielder. And it's like Jazz Chisholm is a second baseman. And sure, he's had his struggles defensively, but that is his position. It's a position that he's played well in the past. It's a position that teams know he can play well. So putting him back there, adding Bellinger, adding Goldschmidt, who's won, I think, at least one Gold Glove at first base. Trent Grisham's a good defender. Like, you have a ton of good defenders in this lineup. It just seems like something's weird about their defense this year, where they've certainly improved, but maybe it's a mentality thing, maybe it's a coaching thing. I honestly don't know, but I think you can't say that the Yankees have not improved defensively. They certainly have, and they're continuing to do that. They're adding Ryan McMahon, who's been one of the better defensive third basemen in baseball. Obviously Nolan Arenado is the guy in that respect. But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's got a no trade clause, and he's going to say no to most deals. But Ryan McMahon was one of the premier guys that was realistically able to be acquired by the Yankees. And I've from the Yankees media that I've consumed over the past couple of years, Yankees fans have been clamoring for McMahon for years. They've wanted that guy as a powerful lefty bat who can play solid third base defense. He fits that mold perfectly. And it'll be fun to watch as Ryan McMahon's Yankees tenure really unfolds and gets going. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that there were some rumors about Suarez going to the Yankees.
Yeah, I heard that.
It seems like they're off on him now. It'd be nice for the Phillies to go grab him. I don't know if he's exactly the best fit for their needs. He'd certainly be nice to add, and I mean he's been incredible this year. I picked him up in fantasy. He's been awesome, but I think the Phillies should prioritize other things. I wouldn't be upset if they got him, but I also wouldn't be upset if he fell to somebody else. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know the Mariners are in on Suarez, but I don't know. Do the Mariners have the pieces to go get Eugenio Suarez? Because I know his asking price, or the Diamondbacks' asking price for him, has been huge. But I guess they did pull off the Naylor trade. I don't know. I don't know where I realistically think Eugenio Suarez will go. There are a couple teams that feel like decent fits for him, but yeah, I don't know. Third base has been an interesting position this year because there are a couple guys who kind of run the show there, and Suarez has kind of been one of them. But I don't know. And then with the Yankees taking Ryan McMahon off the market, I think Suarez's price is only going to jump higher because now there's even fewer options at third base. One of the premier defensive third basemen just got taken off the board.
Right.
So, I mean, Suarez has not had a bad defensive season either, but he's no Ryan McMahon over there. So it'll be interesting to see where that whole third base market goes. I think the Yankees got the guy they always wanted, and I think he'll be a good fit there. And you're right, he did have a good game today. 2 hits, 2 RBIs. But
Yeah.
the strikeouts have been a factor for McMahon, and we'll see if they continue to be a factor. But I think the Yankees have some room for that. Like, I don't think they've been a terribly swing-happy team. Like, I don't think they have too many strikeouts. I know Volpe's been kind of having a rough year in that respect, but looking at all these OPSs in this Yankees lineup, it doesn't seem like that's been a huge issue for them. I think they can afford a guy like McMahon who is going to strike out every so often. But yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting deadline so far. I know we have the Josh Naylor deal on here too. I'd really like to see who the first reliever, like the first big name back end reliever to go. I don't know who it's going to be. I hope the Phillies grab someone. I would love for them to get like a Ryan Helsley. I don't know if he's going to get traded. It seems like he is. I think he recently said himself that he expects to be traded. But I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen much as far as big back end relievers yet. I'm hoping that's not a sign of things to come, or rather things not to come with where the relievers are going to go. But I don't know. It's been an interesting deadline so far. Kind of underwhelming so far, but things heat up real quick with the trade deadline. And a lot of times, things are happening now. I just checked on things. Looks like the Braves just got Eric Fetty, who has not had a great year for the Cardinals. But that's not a crazy deal. But yeah, that's still a starting pitcher, which the Braves have had struggles with. They're losing a couple guys. I think they just lost Grant Holmes, who's been good for them. Anyway, I keep going off on tangents, but my biggest interest in the trade deadline is where these big relievers go.
Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be big. Well, the trade deadline is July 31st at 6, so I mean, there's still a few days left in that, and I think you're right about the relievers. Also, Eugenio Suarez, I think that's a big that's a big sweepstakes right now. And like you said, the Yankees took Ryan McMahon off the list at third baseman. They added Ahmed Rosario, so they added some defensive-minded guys, which has been good considering all the errors that have been going on in the field, which have just resulted in extra bases, and that's just not really a good thing. But yeah, I mean, like, I think McMahon already had, like you said, 2 hits, 2 RBIs, and just like the throws that he's making, to get outs and make plays on the defensive end. Like, we're already seeing like the difference over there, and then moving Jazz Chisholm back over to second. Like, I think all of those things are only going to help the Yanks. So yeah, I mean, I guess that pretty much does that. Pretty much does that part of the episode. So I mean, with all that said, I mean, I guess maybe if you want to just do like a World Series prediction, then we can like sign off on this.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so up in the air because I actually made predictions before the season, and looking at them now, they are very, very wrong. A couple of big ones. I had the Guardians sort of running away with the AL Central. That's not really happening. I had the Rangers being much more of a force than they've been. I had the Yankees and Red Sox sort of being the top 2 in the AL East. I had the Braves obviously being killers, but they're in 4th place, which is crazy. I had the D-backs in 2nd place in the NL West. I really, really sorely missed on that one. But at this point, I think if I were to make my prediction, one thing that feels like it's going to happen at this point, it's really hard to bet against the Astros. I feel like they're going to be in it. I don't know if they're going to win it, but I feel like they're going to be part of it. In the National League, I mean, obviously the easy way out is to say, the Dodgers are going to repeat. But I don't know. It seems like they've kind of struggled, especially against good teams. So I don't know. I feel like the Dodgers could be dethroned this year. I just don't know who's going to do it. I don't think it's going to be the Phillies, as much as I hate to say that. I feel like the Phillies might make a decent playoff run, but kind of drop out at some point. So maybe it could be Astros over Cubs. That could be a fun matchup.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, I felt like last year was kind of the ultimate like big market, blockbuster series with the Yankees Dodgers. I'm sure it
Yeah.
did really well with media ratings, whether people enjoyed it or not. And then obviously the Yankees kind of got blown out too, make it even worse. But this year it feels like we might have a little bit of a different twist. And not that the Yankees and the Dodgers are not going to be in it. I'm sure they are going to be in the playoff. Obviously they're probably going to both be playoff teams, but in
Yeah.
terms of like the actual, who's going to win it or not, I could see Astros Cubs. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I want to be a little adventurous, maybe do something, maybe go like in a different direction, just for fun.
I feel
So
like you're about to say Brewers for some reason.
yeah, I was like, yeah, yeah, I was gonna say Brew. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm probably not supposed to. I mean, I don't know. I don't really care too much. But yeah, I mean, I think the Brewers have been a good team, and they've had back-to-back sweeps over the Dodgers too, actually, which is even though a lot of those games are close. So I don't know. I like what I'm seeing out of them. So I mean, I'm gonna put them in on the NL side, AL side. I don't know. I mean, the Tigers are kind of in a little bit of a slump. I kind of want to go like a little unorthodox and do like Blue Jays Brewers or Tigers
Ooh,
Brewers.
okay.
I
Blue
know I'm a
Jays Brewers
Yankees
is
fan,
fun.
but like, I mean, like, just for argument's sake, like, why don't we do something fun like that? And then, yeah, why not? Like, well, I think the Blue Jays are like red hot. They've been playing really
Yeah.
good, and obviously I watched decent amount of their series against the Yankees, so I could say that they're pretty hot. And then, yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, it's probably gonna be wrong, but I mean, it's as good as a guess as any right now, I would think. So I mean, like, who knows?
It feels pretty
Yeah.
wide open. It feels like the American League as a whole is wide open, and then the
Yeah.
National League, it's wide open in terms of which playoff team will go the furthest. But I think the playoff teams are pretty much
I
not
think we
not
can have.
completely set now, but it's getting close.
I think we have some sort of idea, but yeah. I mean, we could probably come back to that. Yeah. I mean, I think Blue Jays Brewers would be interesting, or Tigers Brewers, or Astros Cubs. I mean, it would be good to get like fresh faces in like any
Yeah.
of the sports finals, especially this one, especially after last year's a little bit of a contrast from the big market spectacular we had last season. But maybe we could do another episode like before the playoffs or something like that, so we can get like a more playoff preview kind of thing going on or something like that down the line.
That'd be super fun. Hopefully, if we do an episode like that, I'll be talking about how much success the Mariners and Phillies have each had.
Yeah,
That'd be nice.
yeah, well, and
Especially
yeah,
the Phillies. But
right. Hopefully, the Yankees do make another push towards the playoffs. Obviously, like I guess right now the concern is Aaron Judge getting back in the lineup, but it looked like he's going to be in the IL for the next 10 days, and then we'll see what happens after that. So hopefully they don't lose too much ground. Obviously, big series against Tampa, but I mean, it's always fun to do like a big long little series. Obviously, like I said in the beginning, we don't do a ton of baseball, so hopefully this covers quite a bit for anyone who's a really big baseball fan. And yeah, like I said, we could do another episode during playoff time, and obviously also good to do football talk. I love talking about that. I'm going to do a lot of previews, but it was cool to kind of touch back on where we left off last time and talk about what exactly went right and wrong in that Super Bowl matchup, and how I actually ended up predicting the right team. Even though I don't like them, and how Saquon Barkley ended up getting shut down, which I think we both kind of had in mind, but
yeah,
I wasn't really expecting, like you said, Jalen Hurts to have the big game, the passing offense, Smith and Brown and the O-line, just the way that they dominated, and then on the defensive side of the ball, they completely wrecked the game for Kansas City. But yeah, no, football's fun. Definitely a lot of previews coming up over the next month as NFL and college football coming back. But this has been SportsVibe episode 95, the MLB midseason update. Yeah, hopefully we can get an episode towards the playoffs. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But stay tuned for the next few episodes over the next month leading up to the 100th. And as always, the vibes are always high on SportsVibe.
go Phils, go Birds.